How are you guys doing? Today is Monday, May 23rd, 2022. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do a review for the 2021-22 La Liga season in Spain. And right before I get into congratulating Real Madrid for winning La Liga for the second time in the last 3 seasons and for the third time in the last 6 seasons, I'm of course going to give a really quick overview as to what La Liga is, as La Liga is a combination of Spain's best 20 teams. And the way they ensure that is that at the end of every year, the bottom 3 teams in La Liga get relegated to La Liga 2, La Liga Dos, the second division, and then the 3 best teams from the second division of La Liga get promoted up to La Liga. They do this every single year, and literally from this season, there are 17 teams that competed in this past season that will go on to next season. There are 3 teams that got demoted, 3 teams that will get promoted back up to make it initially 20. And that within that 17 that are going to say, there are going to be 7 teams that get a chance to play soccer outside of Spain, outside of La Liga, outside of the domestic cups and everything that comes with it. So with that said, I'm going to take you team by team, and starting from the very top, the champions this year were Real Madrid. The last time Real Madrid won was in 2019-2020, and last year they were the runners up to Atletico Madrid. So if they were to, of course, start another streak, it would have to start with this season. They finished with 86 points in the table. That's 13 more points than second place Barcelona did. Real would finish with 26 wins, 5 more wins than Barcelona and Atletico Madrid, who were the other teams that finished with at least 20. Real Madrid would finish with 8 draws, the least amount of draws, tied with Atletico and Real Betis. They had 4 losses, the least amount of losses in La Liga, they are tied with Sevilla in that regard. And then taking a look at their players who would go on to break the statistical leaderboards, their elite French striker Karimenzma would lead La Liga in goals scored, as he had 27 of them. He was the only player in La Liga to finish with at least 20 goals on the year, so of course congrats to him. He also finished with 12 assists. He will be one of 2 players on Real Madrid with a double-digit amount of goals and assists. He would be the only player in La Liga with at least 20 goals scored and a double-digit amount of assists, as Karimenzma was in a class of his own within the context of the La Liga season, not even mentioning what he's doing in Champions League this season. And of course, looking at Real Madrid winning La Liga, they of course will qualify for Champions League next year. So win or lose Champions League, win or lose the final, they should be able to see themselves in this tournament next year, and deservedly so. Sitting also in that statistical leaderboard with Karimenzma was Vinicius Jr., as their young Brazilian forward has really made a name for himself this season. He would go on to finish with 17 goals, and he would also go on to finish with 10 assists, as he would be, of course, one of 2 players in all of the Bundesliga who would finish with a double-digit amount of assists and finish in the top 5 in goals scored alongside Karimenzma. So Vinny Jr., if this was probably the year in which Vinny has shown that he is a La Liga threat, the player that Real Madrid signed him to be. But then, of course, looking at the players who would lead the league in clean sheets, Real Madrid's elite Belgian goaler Thibaut Courtois would finish second in La Liga in clean sheets, as he had 16 of them in the 36 matches he played. He was one of 2 players with at least 15 of them, as Alex Ramiro from Sociedad had more. But like I said, like I've been saying before, the La Liga champs, Real Madrid, will see themselves compete in Champions League next year. And of course the Supercopa as well. Sitting right behind them in the table was Barcelona. After Barcelona found themselves in the first half, or in the bottom half of the table in the first half of the year, they would go on to sign Xavi Hernandez, one of their former players, to be the coach. And of course, they'd have to do a lot of They would have to do a lot of damage control after they were unable to re-sign Messi, and they were dealing with a lot of other stuff. Regardless, they would finish tied with Madrid, Atletico for the second most wins in La Liga with 21. They would have 2 less losses and 2 more draws than Madrid, so they would have a 2-point advantage over Atletico Madrid. And Barcelona will find themselves in Champions League next year. Out of the goals and assists leaderboards, the only players that would make it would be Ousmane Dembele, as Dembele's 13 assists would lead La Liga. And then, of course, Jordi Alba, their defender, would finish with 10 assists as he tied for third. He was one of 4 players to have that many assists. Real Madrid and Barcelona were the 2 teams that had 2 players with a double-digit amount of assists in La Liga. So, of course, that would be a big part of the reason why these teams are able to make it so far. And then not to mention that Barcelona's goalie, Marc-Andre ter Stegen, was one of 12 goalies in La Liga who had a double-digit amount of clean sheets on the year. Barcelona will find themselves competing in Champions League this upcoming season. Sitting third in La Liga are last year's La Liga champs, Atletico Madrid. After last year, they would go on to win the table with 86 points, the amount of points Real Madrid had this year. They would finish with 71 points. That's 15 less points than they had last year. Taking a look at how their season would finish, they would finish with 21 wins, just like Barcelona. They had 2 less draws and 2 more losses by the end of the year. And looking at how they would really kind of fare defensively, it looks as though Jan Oblak, their goalie, would finish with 12 clean sheets on the year, tied for at least the top 8 within La Liga, to get a sense of how well Madrid had played as a defensive unit for the season. But sitting right behind, I guess before I get past them, they would go on to finish 1 point above Sevilla, but Atletico Madrid will find themselves competing in Champions League next year. That 4th spot in Spain went to Sevilla, as Sevilla would go on to finish with 5 more points than 5th place Real Betis. They would finish with 16 draws, and they had 4 losses, tied with Real Madrid for the least amount of losses in all of La Liga. Their 16 draws were also the most draws in all of La Liga this year. And then taking a look at how they would fare, like at least on the defensive side, their goalie Bono would finish with 13 clean sheets, tied with Jeremias Ledesma of Cádiz for the 6th most amount of clean sheets within La Liga. And of course, with them clinching it in the last couple of weeks, they will find themselves competing with the best teams in Europe in the best tournament, in the best yearly club tournament that the Europe and the world has to offer. Sitting right behind them in 5th place is Real Betis. And once you get to 5th place, you have Real Betis going into Europa League group stage for next year. They would go on and finish with 1 more win than Sevilla, but they had 7 more losses and 8 less draws than Sevilla by the end of the year. Real Betis' leading goal scorer, Juan Mi, would finish with 16 goals, tied with Eres Unal of Getafe for 5th most in La Liga. And then taking a look at how Betis would fare on the defensive end, Real Betis's goalie this particular season, Claudio Bravo, he was their leading clean sheet maker or put together, as he had 18 on the year, or he would finish 18th as he had 6 on the year in the 12 matchups that he played. However, they will find themselves competing outside of Spain. Sitting right behind them in 6th place is Real Sociedad, as Sociedad would finish with 17 wins, 11 draws, and 10 losses on the year. They were, of course, the highest rated team that would have a double-digit amount of draws and losses on the year. And as they finished 3 points right behind Real Betis, they, of course, would qualify for that chance to play outside of Spain. And Real Sociedad's goalie, Alex Ramiro, would lead the La Liga in clean sheets, as he had 19 of them in the 35 matches he played. I guess by far, game by game, season by season performance. He probably did have the best performance season in season now. So, of course, congratulations to Alex Ramiro. And then sitting right behind Real Sociedad for that last spot of playing outside of Spain is Villarreal, as Villarreal was competing within Champions League last year all the way to the semifinals. They were able to qualify for Europa Conference League qualifiers as they finished 3 points below Real Sociedad in the table. And then taking a look at how Villarreal's season would, of course, come to an end. Their leading assister, Danny Barrejo, would tie for the top 5 in the top 6 in assists this season, as he was one of the 6 players that had 10 of them on the year. And then taking a look at how their goalie would fare, Geronimo Rulli would tie with David Soria of Getafe and Matis Di Turo with 14 clean sheets, as he did so in 32 matchups. He would go on to have the 3rd best percentage of goalies playing in La Liga this season. And then taking a look at the teams outside of those 7 that are still qualified to play in La Liga for next season. The top team that qualified for La Liga that isn't moving on past is Athletic Club. They finished 4 points behind Villarreal at the end of the season. Finishing 7 points below them is 9th place Valencia. Right below them is 10th place Osasuna, as they had 1 less point than Valencia in the table. Sitting right below Osasuna is Celta Vigo, as Celta Vigo had 1 less point in the table. Celta Vigo's leading scorer, Iago Aspas, would finish 2nd in La Liga in scoring, as he had 18 goals on the season. So, of course, congratulations on all of that. 12th place went to Rayo Vallecano, as they had 4 less points than Celta Vigo, tied with Elche and Espanyol. Sitting in 14th, Espanyol would have the player who would finish 3rd or tied for 3rd in La Liga in scoring, tied with Vinny Jr. They had Raúl de Tomás. Raúl de Tomás's 17 goals, of course, would stand out and be very instrumental in Espanyol not getting relegated. Then there was a 3-way tie for the 3 teams that didn't get relegated, just 3 points below Vallecano, Elche, and Espanyol. 15th went to Getafe, 16th went to Mallorca, and 17th went to Cádiz, as they all had 39 points in the table, and they all were able to avoid relegation. They were just able to stay within La Liga by 1 single point. 18th place, the top team that got relegated was Granada. Granada would finish with 8 wins on the season, just like Cádiz right in front of them, but they had 1 more win and 1 less loss, so they had 1 less point in the table. Sitting right below Granada is 19th place Levante, as Levante would finish with 3 less points than Granada because they had 3 more losses and 3 less draws. And then sitting at the bottom was Alaves. The bottom 4 teams in Spain all had 8 wins, and then 5 of the bottom 6, as Getafe did as well. As Alaves would go on to finish with 8 wins. They had 7 draws. They had 23 losses. Their 23 losses were the most in La Liga. They were the only team to win to lose at least 20 matchups in this 38-game season. And with this, Granada, Levante, and Alaves will get demoted. And, of course, the top 3 teams from the second branch of La Liga will get promoted. And with that said, that's pretty much all I have for you. I want to thank the ESPN and I want to thank the FIFA and Google websites for giving me all that I needed for this episode. And with that said, I want to, of course, continue on. I do have the season review for Serie A following this. And I want to thank everyone for listening, and I want to thank everyone for following along. I want to thank everyone for listening. I hope all is well, and I will catch you with more right after this. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to my piece. I'm James Sims. This is The Elite. Peace out. Thanks for letting me try out all these closing things. I mean, it's kind of fun, but it's all not serious. It's all fun. I'll catch you with one after this. Peace out yet again.